Hey guys, this is day 3 and part 3 of our unusual vet bringbacks. First, we did a video about a Nazi flag that was brought back by Walt Donahue. The second one, we actually had 2 bringbacks. One was by Corporal Birch, and the second was by Colonel Spivak. Spivak, it's like pivot. I just can't get that out of my head, sorry. Pivot! Spivak. And the third one is an easy name, Paul Davis. Now, I don't have his rank, but Paul Davis is a vet who brought this gun back from the war. Let me show you the letter that came with it, and then we're going to talk about the story behind the gun, and then we're going to talk about the finish on the gun, because I think there's something to learn about the history of these guns and Walthers in general. Okay, first we see that this was written in October of 2017, and it was turned into another dealer, and I've gotten additional information about the gun from the other dealer, but his name is Paul Davis. He was in the First Army. He also acquired this gun, and there's the serial number, and of course that does match the serial number on the gun. And what's important about this is in this letter he said it came in nickel finish from an SS colonel at the Battle of Aachen in late 1944. Battle of Aachen was pretty much the whole month of October. It lasted almost the entire month. So the month of October, they did fight in the Battle of Aachen, the First Army, as well as the Third Army, Patton's division. The First Army and the Third Army, about 100,000 men, took the city of Aachen. Aachen was a sleepy resort town. They have spa springs there, sulfur springs. No real war value, except for the fact that it was the first town in Germany to be taken by the U.S. Army. So of course, once the Allied armies entered Germany, they fought all that much harder. And in fact, reading a bit about this battle, it was the first time they used the Volkssturm, or the People's Army, Citizen Army. And those were people who were not regular soldiers, but older men and younger boys who fought in this Battle of Aachen. Finally, we see that it also came with a shoulder holster. And so this shoulder holster that's mentioned here, this came with it. Now, I can talk a little bit about this. This would clip on, like if you put it inside your tunic, it would clip onto one of your buttons to hold it down, it would go over your shoulder. These are very, very rare holsters. It is AK, but this is a bank-style holster. In other words, it gets its name because usually bankers would wear these under their suit. There's another place where you could attach it to a button, inside your vest. So it would hold it down, keep it from flopping around, but this is a shoulder holster, banker style, but they were also used by pilots and tankers. This holster alone, well, I've actually had people offer $1,000 just for the holster. But let's take a look at the fit. But before I do that, yeah, this is brass fitting, so this is pretty early. Early AK holster with the straps, and often the straps are missing, or these parts are missing, or the strap. These are all things that get lost. But this has been kept in remarkable condition. And the additional information, not in the letter, there's additional information that it was taken from an SS colonel who was in a tank battalion. And specifically, the person that brought this in and sold it originally said the colonel had an armband that said, Liebstandarte Adolf Hitler. So basically, Adolf Hitler's personal guard was sent to the town of Aachen, and if we take a look at the history, that's exactly what happened. So in our logo, in the beginning, you see great guns, cool stories. What is it? Great guns, cool history. We actually have cool guns, great history. We have great guns. Anyway, this is a great gun with some really cool history. I had never heard of the Battle of Aachen, but when I looked it up, it was a big deal. Again, first time we went into Germany and took a town. And there was actually 2 battles of Aachen. When we first went into the town, they got through very quickly because we had about 100,000 soldiers involved in the 1st and 3rd Army Group. And they went through the town really quickly. But of course, when Hitler heard that we were taking part of Germany for the first time, he sent in 3 SS Panzer divisions. The town was originally defended by only about 13,000 regular troops, and again, some Volkssturm. Doesn't say how many, probably a small contingency. But then Hitler sent in 3 SS panzer divisions, including his own personal bodyguards, the Liebstandarte Hitler Division. And that was the 1st Panzer Division, by the way. And yes, according to the history books, they did come back, and then they battled for another month because they pushed the Americans back. And it was literally tank warfare in the streets, basically door-to-door fighting, probably akin to what we saw in Fallujah. It's just absolutely brutal, going door-to-door with snipers and death behind every corner. The Americans eventually took the town before the end of October, and of course went on through from there. But Paul Davis, we don't really know much about his service. That's something that could use some more research. But the other part of this gun that's unusual. So the fact that it was taken from an SS colonel is very unusual, but also the finish is very unusual, and it deserves a closer look. So that's what we're going to do. So let's talk about the nickel finish. Now, if you watch my channel, and you better watch my channel and like and subscribe, but if you watch the channel, I talk about nickel finishes all the time, and I say if you find a gun that has a nickel finish, chances are 9 out of 10 that it was done by the vet after the end of the war. Now, we've sold nickeled Lugers, nickeled P38s, PPs, pretty much every variation of gun that was brought back. Some of them were nickeled. And so when I find a nickeled gun, 9 times out of 10, it was nickeled by the vet. It was actually a cottage industry at the end of the war. People were sitting around waiting to go home. There was a system for sending people home. In fact, in the last video when we talked about Birch, he went home, one of the first one, because he was severely wounded. So there was a priority system in terms of people getting back to the United States. Kind of like an evacuation where you take the wounded first, the most serious, and then like if you're a healthy soldier, you were sitting around for months. And during that time, they would get souvenirs. They played cards, they traded things, traded souvenirs. The #1 story I get on how somebody got this is they took it from a SS officer, #1 story. #2 story, I won it in a poker game. Probably more true. People won these in poker games, and again, drinking, sitting around, but they also nickel-plated their guns. Why did they do that? It added bling, it made the souvenir more special, when in fact it hurt the collector value, but they didn't know that then. Now, according to this story, Paul Davis got this from the colonel. It was already nickeled. So there's only 2 possibilities. One, the SS colonel bought his own private carry piece, and that happened all the time, so that's very plausible. So he goes to Walther and he buys a gun. He can pick whatever finish he wants. Now in Germany, the most popular finish, other than bluing, was the verchrompt. Also, and my German is not good, but verchrompt. I'm from Philly, so I say yo Adrian and Wooder, but they say verchrompt. Americans, you know, vercramped. If you're from the South, for cramped. Anyway, it's a satin nickel finish. I know I'm going to get a lot of comments on that. I'm not making fun. I'm having fun. This is from my personal collection, and we do sell PPs and PPKs with the verchrompt finish. This happens to be an aluminum frame. You can see the color is a little bit different. So this is an aluminum frame. It was sold by a retailer. This is just a phenomenal gun, and no, you can't have it. I just pulled it out to show you. You can see the magazine is verchrompt as well. So satin nickel was the 2nd most popular finish. And this shiny nickel and sometimes chrome was a finish that was rarely ordered. But if the story is true, he ordered a nickel finish gun and used it as a private purchase. Sometimes it's hard to see because of the shininess of the finish, but it does have the Eagle M proof. Therefore, and the serial number would tell me it was made in around 1940. So the battle was 1944, so the timeline is certainly plausible. If he ordered the gun, he could also order whatever holster he wanted. And so, again, if we go with the story, he ordered the holster and this gun, and it was already nickeled. The only other possibility is he bought it as a blued gun, and had it nickeled. I don't know that there's a way to know for sure, but it's certainly plausible that he bought it as an original nickeled. It's also plausible that he had it nickeled. Let's take a look at some of the tells. That I have to do air quotes, tells. Let's take a look at some of the tells for whether it is original nickel or has been re-nickeled. Okay, this gun we know for a fact 100% is original chrome or nickeled finish. This is also an aluminum frame. You can see the slightly different color here. And on the back you can see where the slide meets the frame. This is aluminum, and I believe it's just polished aluminum. I don't think it has any finish at all. But these are known to be nickeled guns or chromed guns by serial number, because in that block there's there's at least 100 of these special order, all in nickel or chrome finish. Now, one of the things that you want to look for, and I'd have to take off my gloves, but I run my finger over the, in this case, eagle end, but it could be crown end, and you should feel the indent. You should feel the metal. The force of the stamp would cause the metal to raise around the edges, and so when you rub your finger over it, it should be rough. If it's been nickeled over, they often would polish it and not redo the stamp. If they do redo the stamp, it would still be raised. But if they polish it and nickel over it, it's going to be smooth to the touch. Now, that's not 100% the case, because I have other guns that it's just a light strike, a very light strike, and it's smooth. But one of the tells is just rub your finger over the proof mark, and you should be able to feel the bump. In this case, very slight, but here more pronounced. This is also nickeled, so the ejection port is nickeled. I can definitely feel the bump here. I can barely feel it here. So that lends itself to probably original. The next thing I want to look at is the logo. And in this case, it's acid etched over the finish, and here the logo is crisp. You can see every period, every dot. It's not filled in at all. On this gun, from Paul Davis, brought back by Paul Davis, the logo looks, it looks pretty crisp. Although it's not 100%. You know, if you just put a thin layer of nickel on it, although this looks like there's a little nick here. If you put certainly 2 coats, it's going to really fill it in. So this, I reserve judgment. I can't say 100%, but if it looks filled in, then clearly it's been re-nickeled. The third thing I look for is the red dot. The red dot, obviously, if it was re-nickeled, they redo the red dot, and the red dot can be a little bit different depending on the gun. Now, this gun is from 1944, very much later. I've shown this gun before in previous videos, and so I know this is also aluminum with a nickeled finish. You can see the logo. It's sharp, and look at the red dot and the red dot. They are almost identical. In fact, they're about identical. Again, the slide legend, it's hard to say for sure, but the red dot is definitely a good sign. And then finally, the other thing that I notice on a gun that's been nickeled, whether it's a German craftsman after the war just trying to make a few dollars, and I heard you could get a gun nickeled for a couple packs of cigarettes, but I don't, again, those are just stories, or they could have brought it home and had it nickel plated here. The other thing you want to look at is for blued small parts, because when they nickeled this, notice this is blued, follower is blued, whereas an amateur nickeler will just throw everything in the nickel tank. Remember this one? This is the one late war, 1944, from serial number. This is blued, and if I took the grip off, you would see small parts inside that are also blued. And again, this is not 100%, but that kind of lends itself to original nickel. So back to the Davis gun, I'm actually going to take the grip off just to make my point. Okay, I took 2 guns apart. I need a bigger lap here. So this is the Paul Davis gun, the vet bring back from an SS officer, colonel, SS colonel. So you see that this is blued. You also see bluing, bluing, bluing. And again, this is not 100%. You know, it's not like, okay, this is definite proof. It's not. But at least it says that it wasn't somebody who just threw all the parts in a nickel tank, because that's what they would do. If you're nickel plating a gun, even look at that. I mean, that little pin is still blued. It's more likely that it's factory with the original blue on it. As somebody who's doing this for a pack of cigarettes, you just throw all the parts in a tank. Most notably would be the two slides. So for example, this slide, this is the gun from 1944 that I know 100% is original nickel. Here's the slide. But if you take it off and look inside, it's dull. Again, if you're somebody who does plate nickeling, you're just going to take this slide, put the whole thing in the tank, bring it on out, let it drip dry. I don't know the process really well. But the inside and out are all going to be shiny nickel. Here is the vet bringback, Paul Davis. You can see the inside is exactly the same. It's that dull finish. Again, this doesn't have to be 100%. It's just that this is another good indication. So all we can do is take all of the tells, the logo, the red dot, the proof marks, and the interior. Those are all important factors when you're determining if it was done at the factory or done later as a souvenir. So part 3 video is about an unusual bringback from Paul Davis, who was in the Battle of Aachen. Cool guns, great stories. Great guns, cool stories. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe.